I've been working on redoing the South Fence Swale. The weeds had imperviated the whole area, and digging them out, I had to take a lot of logs out of this swale, and so I'm going to be working on rebuilding that from this section up, and then there's a lower section with another bit of logs. This is rough work. I think this is why I didn't really pursue being a gardener, even though in high school I had completed an ornamental horticulture certificate and was certified to be a gardener. I went on to be a gardener doing indoor landscapes for a company that put potted plants and managed large sections of plants, huge planters in some of these Silicon Valley company areas. Then I went on to be a florist and then got into retail. So now with permaculture, I have a renewed interest in doing this and have a job as a gardener, but going towards being 60 years old and being small and having a back condition and all that, and nerve pain in my feet, it's not that easy to complete the job, but it's doable with a little ingenuity.
Did you still need help moving stuff?
Got him now.
Oh, I just saw the email.
Yeah.
Okay.
I rolled them on over. It just needed to go from there over to here, but it was like beyond what I could lift.
Yeah, they're heavy. They're dense, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and where
Well, thanks.
are you putting them?
I've got to put them all in here, but I'm going to have to dig and place. It's going to take a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you're welcome to help, but it's kind of going to be a tedious process.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Well,
Thanks,
I
Steve.
come down earlier.
He's all suited up and everything.
Right?
So now that I have all my logs rolled into place, I can begin to place them in the swale. First off, I've got to figure out how the water gets under the pathway and over into the other side of the swale. So I'll be exploring this area over here to see if there's a drain pipe or how all that works. So it looks to me like there's just a series of logs that go under the pathway, and that leaves areas for water to move around and move into the bottom section of the swale. I'm going to do a little more exploration on that and start placing some of the logs. Tilting into the swale so that if any water does hit this or we get a huge rainfall, it goes ahead and puts at least that water down into the ditch here. If you get these seated right, they also make nice places to sit and weed inside the swale. So to get those seated, I like to dig up extra soil underneath, kind of loosen it all up so that I can kind of swivel the stump in there, get it all nice and kind of sunk into the mud. Now as I'm digging, I can see all kinds of logs that are going that way and under the path. And so I want to make sure to leave some of those channels open. So in between these bigger logs, I'm going to leave sections of smaller logs to make sure we have good water flow. Working on it, little bits at a time.
Little bit at a time.
Yeah,
What plant is this?
I don't know.
Huh.
Looks sort of viburnum-ish. That's what I intend to find out, is identifying all the plants that are in here.
Do you ask my tree ever?
I do. She knows some of them, but there was another gardener after her that planted a lot of these. So, yeah, I'm gonna do some mapping of the property to figure it out.
Yay!
Yeah.
Alright. Also, I was going to ask you, you know how you said that permaculture land that was a potential project?
Mm-hmm.
Do you, where is the land at?
It's in Battleground, Washington, but she hasn't gotten back to me.
She hasn't got back to you. Okay.
Yeah, she was here one day collecting bamboo, and then she said, yeah, I've got this land y'all can use, and then I've tried to call her and leave her a voicemail.
Oh, I hate that. People
Yeah.
don't get back to you.
Yeah, and we don't have her email. She doesn't really do much email or social media.
So it's hard to get a hold of her.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully she gets back soon.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to find out about that.
Well, this little alligator here.
Yeah, maybe I should take him away. Maybe he's scaring the real salamanders.
Oh, how good.
Hello, Mr. Crow. Yeah, there's a lady who said that I could farm her land. So I've been trying to get a hold of her. She was here visiting one day. So we'll see if anything happens with that. A bunch of the students that are in the permaculture class with me would like to jump on board and work on that project. So hopefully we'll be able to get that one together. So I'm using some of the soil that's in the pathway to fill in so that I use some that doesn't have any weeds in it. This has been layers and layers of wood chips put down and it eventually breaks down to be a nice organic soil. So I'm going to continue putting that in there. Now, just for aesthetics, I'm putting in a few more decorative, interesting looking logs. I'm also trying to just let some of these other logs show, just because I think it looks a little bit nicer. Later on, I'm going to go on and find out more about attracting amphibians to live in the swale here. We don't quite have like a wet enough condition. Our swale is meant to catch the rainwater that comes off the roof and off the driveway and make sure it percolates into the ground. So we haven't really concentrated on that, but it is something that the members of the ecovillage here want and something that the owners want. The owner at one time actually did bring in some salamanders, but we didn't really have the right conditions for them to thrive, so that didn't really work out. And from what I can see from the research that I've done is that if you have the right conditions, that the frogs will come. There's some singing Oregon frogs, and there's these really huge Oregon newt, I think it is. So I'd love to see some of those. But the one drawback is that we do have, it's pretty urban here, we're in the city, and those creatures won't cross the road. So they say, if you have the right habitat, they'll come unless they have to cross a road. So that's a road that we're going to have to cross here to attracting amphibians. I've decided I don't really like the look of this log here, so I'm going to try to replace it with one of these wider, more upright ones. Part of this is functionality, and the other part for me is kind of an art project. I tend to like to put the wider end down just for stability. Every now and then I do it differently just because one side has a better top, but I'm going to put this bigger side out. It does kind of flare out on one side, so I think that'll be good. Loosen up this bit. That gives me more flexibility for placement, so I can kind of wiggle it in there. That looks good. Nice and sturdy. I'm getting started on the other side of the swale here. And that side, I'm happy with how it looks. I did leave some holes in the pathway. I'm just going to fill that in with wood chips and it'll sink down and make soil underneath just like it did before. So part of this over here is that the raspberries are planted there, and this kind of slopes down, so when you're walking to pick the blackberries, it's kind of a little topsy-turvy. So I'd love to be able to fix this, and I don't know if my logs are big enough to do it today so that it doesn't slant down as much. So I'm going to dig out some of this soil here. I've already dug out all of the weeds, and I'll be putting some hopefully bigger logs of the ones that I have here. Now, we do have landscapers that come and drop off logs and wood chips in our wood chip depot just down there, but there weren't any logs, so I fortunately asked a couple of classmates in the permaculture school, and somebody dropped some off for me last night. So that was great. I can get on with my project. So let's get digging. Now, right over here, there's a grate that comes off the driveway. It's catching the rainwater that comes down the driveway, and it travels down here, so I've got to kind of recreate this gully that goes into here. Probably later I'll put some rock or some urbanite in there, but I've got to make sure that I leave that section open so the water can flow in. All right, now that I have these big logs over here where I want them, I can see that over here I've got a lot of these asters that have grown out from here with the underground roots. So I'm going to have to dig up all of that before I kind of fill this in with dirt. So I'm going to kind of want to dig that and then level it out. That's going to be a project for another day. I have a couple other things I need to get done before I start that one. So I'm just going to continue putting the logs in here and then fill it in a bit later. So I put one more big log on that end and a couple small ones around the corner, and I'm going to roll my extra stumps down here so that when I do this next section I'll have those ready. So that's all I'm going to do on this side for now because of the big project of digging all that out. I'm going to leave that for another day. So I'm going to hop over to the other side and put a few plants in. Now what I want to try to do is put some plants in to replace the weeds or asters that were in here. I haven't done a whole lot of research into what I want to put in here, so I just picked up some simple grasses that I think might work from the local organic farm supply. And I also got some shade plants, this oxalis and this native bleeding heart that I can put into the shadier spots here. I don't know if it'll be shady enough for them, but these were plants that were sticking out in the path and had to come out anyway, so I'm just bringing one of each to see if that ends. While I'm down here, I'm going to cut off this branch that is just kind of half a branch left. It looks like it was sticking into the path and someone just cut it off here. What I like to do is I like to cut them down way at the base. If this is, you know, a branch that's going to come back into the walkway, so I'm going to trim that while I'm here. That's going to make it easier for me to dig where I want to put the oxalis. So I finished putting the plants in. You can see this little mondo grass here and the wild bleeding heart. I've got the oxalis and some other grasses there. Only thing left to do is to water them. Eventually I'd like to put in some different types of plants. I want to put a little more study into companion planting and make sure that they're plants that, you know, work well together. Some plants send out toxic chemicals through their roots to discourage other plants from taking over their territory. And some plants, the roots are just so invasive and so matted up, and they spread so much that it strangles out all the other plants. That's kind of how the asters were in here. So some of the plants I put in here tend to do that and take over also, which might be a good thing. Maybe they'll crowd it out enough that the asters won't come back, then maybe I'll want to take these out later. But I think, it's worth giving it a try, see if it works. I do want to put something in here that's going to try to discourage the asters from regrowing, because now I have this nice, luscious, fertile soil that all kinds of seeds are going to start, sprouting and popping up in. So I will let you know on the next episode how this is going, or maybe on an episode farther down the road, because I think I'll do a different project in between, kind of mix it up. And I'll also let you know how it's going on the studies of learning different plants that could possibly go in here. So I'm doing several things to study. One is I'm just now finishing up the urban permaculture design course with City Repair, Planet Repair. And I'm 3 weeks into Oregon State University's course with Andrew Millison. That's the Advanced Permaculture Tools for Climate Resilience. I'm also going to some of the East Multnomah County Soil and Water District workshops. So I've been to their weed workshop, so I can, identify definitely the invasive species that I want to get out of here. And I've gone to their native plant workshop, and they have a couple other workshops, one on rain gardens, one on naturescaping, which I'm both interested in to take a look at. And naturescaping is kind of my style. I like to do things that look have a natural look to them, that are maybe a little bit dressier, but I like to plant things as they would look in nature, so not in nice little neat rows. That probably wouldn't look good in, a swale like this. So that's it for this chapter of this series, and I'll see you next time on Earth Village.